All right, strap in everyone. We're going deep on extreme ownership today.
Yeah, diving into the minds of Jocko Willink and Leif Babin.
Former Navy SEAL officers.
Yeah.
These guys, the real deal.
Seen and done it all, especially in Ramadi, Iraq. High-stakes stuff.
But here's the thing. You don't have to be dodging bullets to get something out of this.
Absolutely. This book, it's for anyone leading a team facing a deadline.
Anyone who wants to, just win, basically, in life, work, whatever.
They break down these intense experiences, these missions, into principles anyone can use.
And they don't waste time getting to the point. Right off the bat, they throw you into the action with Leif Babin.
Oh yeah, nighttime in Ramadi. Just caught a suspect suddenly.
Armed enemy fighters ready to roll. Talk about pressure.
And that's where the idea of extreme ownership really hits home.
They don't mess around. They flat out say, there is no one else to blame.
As a leader, you own it all, wins, losses, everything that happens on your watch.
Makes you think, am I really owning my stuff?
They tell this story about a VP always pointing fingers, blaming everyone else.
But when he finally took ownership, things changed.
Big time. It wasn't about magically having all the answers.
More about, what can I do to make things better?
It's a shift, right? From blaming to problem solving.
And they've got this great example, the BDS boat cruise.
Oh yeah, the Navy SEAL training, brutal stuff.
Turns out they swapped the leaders of the best and worst crews.
And get this, the worst crew suddenly became the best.
Just from changing the leader. Wow.
Proves the point, right?
Yeah.
Leadership, it sets the tone, the standard.
Makes me think about the leaders I've worked with. Good and bad.
We've all seen it, right? A good leader inspires a bad one, well.
And chaos.
And that leads to another big idea, believing in the mission.
They talk about training Iraqi soldiers in Ramadi. Insanely tough environment.
It wasn't enough for the SEALs to believe, they had to convince the Iraqi soldiers too.
Why? Right. Everyone needs to understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Like working on a project, knowing how your piece fits into the big picture.
You're going to be more engaged, right?
Yeah.
More motivated.
Way more. And that's where communication comes in. Got to be crystal clear.
They've got this story, this company with a crazy, complicated bonus system.
Yeah, for their sales team.
Yep.
Tried to incentivize certain behaviors, but...
It backfired. Salespeople were totally confused, demotivated.
Like those experiments with rats, you know?
If they can't see the link between action and reward...
They won't change their behavior.
Same for us, whether you're leading a team or, heck, training a dog.
Communication breakdowns, they happen everywhere.
And it's not just about giving orders, it's setting expectations, giving feedback.
Making sure everyone is on the same page, aligned.
Which brings us to, well, what happens when things go sideways?
Which, let's be real, they always do.
They've got this crazy story, a rooftop escape under fire.
Split-second decisions, prioritizing, executing flawlessly to survive.
That's where prioritize and execute comes in.
Even in chaos, having a plan, breaking things down into steps.
It can make all the difference.
Think about it. A huge project at work, everything's going wrong, deadlines looming.
You got to stay calm, focus on the most critical tasks, one step at a time.
Exactly. Don't get overwhelmed by the chaos. That's where decentralized command comes in.
This one's interesting. They tell this story. Almost a friendly fire incident.
Could have been avoided if the junior leaders had been empowered to make decisions.
So sometimes the best decisions are made by the people closest to the action.
They have the freshest info, can react faster.
Instead of everything getting stuck at the top.
Empower people, build trust, accountability. Everyone owns the mission.
But this all relies on a good plan, right? Which I think that's where we're headed next.
Absolutely. We'll dig into how they plan, the SEAL way, analyzing the mission, the risks, everything.
Okay, so we've covered ownership, communication, empowering the team, but how do you actually make it all work?
That's where planning comes in, big time. Willink and Babin, they break it down, the whole SEAL planning process.
They don't just wing it, huh?
Not a chance. They're meticulous, it's about anticipating challenges, identifying risks, and always
having a backup plan.
Oh, more than one, probably. They call it commander's intent, making sure everyone gets the why of the mission.
So it's not just following orders blindly, it's understanding the big picture.
Exactly. That way, if something unexpected happens, anyone on the team can make the right call.
Adapt on the fly without needing constant instructions.
They tell this story, a hostage rescue mission right before they're about to go.
Oh man, that's got to be tense.
New intel comes in, changes the whole game. You'd think they'd have to scrap the whole thing.
Start over, yeah.
But no, because they had a solid plan and everyone understood the commander's intent.
They could adjust, still get the job done. Impressive.
Shows you planning isn't about being rigid, it's about having a framework.
So you can be flexible when you need to be. How does this apply to, normal life?
Think about it, your next big project at work, at home, whatever. Planning helps break it down.
Into smaller, more manageable steps,
Yeah.
right?
Analyzing the situation, thinking about potential problems, having those backup plans.
Makes sense. I know I'm guilty of just jumping into things sometimes.
We all do it. But planning ahead, it can save you a lot of stress down the road.
All right, so we've got the plan. Now, how about the doing part? They talk about discipline equals freedom, which,
Yeah, that one sounds kind of weird at first.
right, how can discipline equal freedom?
But they make this point. Having clear procedures, routines, it actually frees up your mind.
To be more creative.
Exactly. Like everyone's operating on the same page, less confusion, better communication.
So you can focus on the task at hand. So it's not about being a robot. It's about,
Having a solid foundation so you can adapt when needed.
they use the example of, themselves in Task Unit Bruiser.
They standardized everything, even how they searched houses in a war zone.
Seriously, everything.
At first, the SEALs hated it. They were used to doing things their own way.
But what happened when they tried it?
It actually made them faster, more effective, and less likely to miss important stuff.
So more discipline, better results.
Mm.
Counterintuitive.
And then they had to change everything again, adapt to new rules for evidence in Iraqi courts.
So even their procedures had to evolve.
And because they were disciplined, they could handle those changes better.
Interesting. So this discipline thing, it's not just for soldiers, is it?
Not at all. Any team, any goal, even personal habits.
They tell that story, this SEAL with the 3 alarm clocks.
Oh, yeah. Had trouble waking up, so 3 alarms, different locations.
Talk about commitment.
But it works, right? You build that discipline, it spills over into other areas of your life.
Makes those tough things a little easier. But even with the best plans, the discipline, things still go wrong sometimes.
That's life, right? And that's where humility comes in. Owning your mistakes.
Not just the wins, but the losses too.
They have this story, a platoon nicknamed X-Ray Platoon.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
They had a bunch of friendly fire incidents. Serious stuff.
Yeah, mistakes can have consequences.
And leaders, they got to take responsibility, be transparent, learn from it.
So you can prevent it from happening again. Which leads to this interesting idea. A leader has nothing to prove, but everything to prove. Okay, now that really does sound like a contradiction.
It is kind of. The point is, your position, it already gives you authority.
So you don't need to be a jerk about it.
But you do need to earn your team's respect by making good decisions, taking care of them.
Leading by example, not just barking orders.
Exactly. Which brings up a tough question. Loyalty to your team versus making the hard choices.
Because sometimes what's best for the mission isn't best for everyone on the team.
Tough spot. They talk about this CEO had to decide whether to shut down a division run by his friend.
Oof, that's a tough one.
Loyalty is important, but it can't come at the expense of the mission.
Sometimes you got to make the tough call, even if it hurts.
And be transparent about it. Explain why you're doing it.
So people understand it's not personal, it's about the bigger picture.
And that takes us to the last chapter, where they talk about winning.
We've talked about ownership, planning, discipline, humility, making tough choices.
Winning, it's more than just, coming in first.
It's about the whole process, the journey.
Building a culture of excellence, constantly improving, always committed to the mission.
So achieving your full potential as a team and as individuals.
Leadership. It's an art and a science. No easy answers, no one-size-fits-all.
It's about taking these principles, adapting them to your situation, learning as you go.
It's a challenge, but it's also a privilege. Leading others.
So we've covered a lot, from the battlefield to the boardroom and everything in between.
And in the next part, we'll bring it all home, connect these principles to your everyday life.
Okay, so we've spent like 2 deep dives now in this world of extreme ownership.
From the battlefield to the boardroom, right?
Yeah, taking responsibility, planning like a SEAL, discipline equaling freedom, all that good stuff.
But now, let's bring it home. How do you actually use this stuff?
Because, let's be honest, most of us aren't facing enemy fire on a daily basis.
Exactly. This isn't just for, combat scenarios.
This is about owning your everyday life. Work, relationships, all of it.
And the cool thing is, Willink and Babin, they actually show you how.
How to apply this stuff in a normal, civilian setting?
They tell this story, this production manager, always blaming a subsidiary company for his problems.
Oh, yeah. Classic us versus them thinking. We've all seen that.
Toxic, man. Just poisons the whole team.
So how did this guy turn things around?
Jocko helped him shift his perspective. Cover and move, they call it.
instead of seeing them as the enemy.
He realized they were on the same team, working towards the same goal.
So he started communicating more, trying to understand their challenges.
And guess what? Things got better. Just from changing his attitude.
Sometimes it's that simple, huh? A change in mindset.
And they also talk about leading UP, the chain of command.
Yeah, we've all had those bosses, the ones who just don't get it.
Well, Jocko and Leif, they admit they used to resist their CEO's questions, too.
Thought it was micromanagement.
But then they realized if they had just communicated better up front.
It would have saved everyone a lot of headache.
So it's about understanding what your boss needs, proactively giving them the info.
Your boss is part of the team too, right?
Exactly. Working together to get things done.
And then there's that whole decisiveness thing. Making the call, even when you don't have all the answers.
Oh yeah, the Chris Kyle story, the sniper. Spots a potential target.
But they're not sure. It could be a civilian.
Split-second decision.
Yeah.
They choose to hold fire, err on the side of caution.
Good lesson, right? Sometimes not acting is the best course of action.
And you gotta be ready to adjust as you go. Trust your gut, make the best call you can.
So we've talked about a lot. Taking ownership, leading up and down, communicating, making decisions.
But here's the big question. What are you gonna do with all this?
How can you apply extreme ownership to your life?
What's one area where you could step up, take more responsibility?
Maybe it's a project at work, a relationship, anything.
Are you blaming others? Playing the victim?
Or maybe you're the leader, holding your team back by micromanaging.
Give them some freedom, let them take ownership.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about being a better leader.
It's about being a better UO.
So as you go back to your life, your work, your challenges,
Remember these principles. Embrace the challenge, take ownership.
and watch what happens when you apply extreme ownership to your world.
You might just surprise yourself. And that's extreme ownership, folks. Until next time.